What's up, Ragin Nation? How y'all doing? This is Alex. You watching the Ragin Ronin review, and I just got back from watching A Good Day to Die Hard. That's the 5th installment in the Die Hard franchise, and the Die Hard franchise is one of my favorite action movie franchises. I'd like to even call it the definitive action movie franchise, because when you trace it back to its roots in the 80s from the very first movie, it is a big action movie in its simplest form. There's no big visual effects. It's not a sci-fi movie. There's no fantasy involved. It's really just about a cop who gets himself in these big situations and he just ends up saving the day. And that's what I love about this franchise. And director John Moore brings us the 5th installment, and here's my review. Essentially, what makes a Die Hard movie is John McClane's character, played by Bruce Willis. And John McClane is still the John McClane that we know. Don't change him. I'm so glad that he's still who he is, because over the course of time, you know, in some franchises, they change directors, and then the characters develop into something else, or they're just a little more different than what they used to be. That's all there. So you don't have to worry about that. John McClane is still John McClane. He's still a character that we all really love. He's just a New York cop who's not someone who turns a blind eye when he sees some shit going down. He's gonna investigate, and the next thing you know, bullets start flying at him. And then ultimately, he ends up saving a day. That's John McClane for you. Now, what makes a Die Hard movie? Big action and terrorists with big demands. Now, A Good Day to Die Hard is a little bit different in terms of its story. It no longer takes place in America. They're bringing it into hostile territory, and that is Russia. And this is one of the biggest changes for the franchise. It's something that kept the movie a bit interesting at the beginning, but ultimately, it's still a Die Hard movie, and really what it's all about is big action. At the beginning, the locale is different, therefore the people that John McClane interacts with are different. It makes for a little bit of comic relief, but it doesn't really dominate the film, because like in some other movies where they have an exotic location, that location ends up playing a character in the film. It's not like that in A Good Day to Die Hard. As for the story, in a Die Hard film, I don't need something like overly intelligent or something with a lot of development. Really, we just want to see John McClane save the day, but I have to say the story in this movie is really, really weak. Director John Moore wanted to change things up a little bit for this installment, and he wanted to bring in the character of Jack McClane, who is John McClane's son. And they haven't talked for a very long time. Jack McClane's in some trouble in Russia. John McClane is there to bail him out. Never mind all this terrorist stuff. Seriously, forget about that. Essentially, this movie is about a father and a son. Now, that's a very bold thing for John Moore to do. He keeps on reminding the audience that this is about a father trying to reconnect with his son. So in some ways, while I feel that John Moore did his best to have a very grounded story in a really over-the-top movie, it feels really forced. I'm not saying that it shouldn't have been there, but let's not completely lose focus of the theme of a Die Hard film. I'm not even gonna talk about the villains in the movie. The villains in this movie are as weak as they get. In fact, I don't even know who the main villain really is, because we meet this guy, then we meet another guy, and then one guy gets off, and then it's this guy, and then it's this guy, and then another guy gets off. You know what? I'm not even gonna get into that. And this is not something that the director intended to keep us guessing. I think it's just really messy writing. Now, as you can tell, I feel that this movie is not as good as it could be, and it's mainly because of the direction. One thing that still makes it great is the action. But the problem with this whole movie has to do with the fact that it just feels really, really rushed. And that's a given because of its short running time. Clocking in at just 97 minutes, it's the shortest movie in the franchise. And because of this short running time, it feels like this plot is just moving a little bit too quickly. And because of that, I don't think the audience really cares what the motives and what the overall mission of the villains really are. At this point, once you get to the 3rd act of the film, you just want to see John McClane and his son kick some ass. And this takes me back to talking about the direction of the film, and I feel that John Moore has got everything backwards. He put the best and most exciting action sequence at the beginning, and then it just gets progressively bland. The first car chase sequence was awesome. It had so much vehicular destruction, in fact the most vehicular destruction in any Die Hard film, and later on they make it even more interesting when they put in a Russian assault chopper blowing them to shreds. And then when you get to the 3rd and final climactic battle, it just feels like they're just trying to end the movie. They're just trying to get it over with, you know, and that's just weak. So ultimately, the poor direction and the weak story, the weak villains, these are the things that really made this the weakest installment in the franchise. The Die Hard movies were always about getting from point A to point B, but John McClane can't get to point B without making a detour and going through point A.5 or A.5. They still managed to accomplish that in the movie, but even though they just threw in a bunch of plot twists to keep it interesting, it still didn't matter to me. John Moore has directed a really, really weak Die Hard film. But I'll give him this. That car chase at the beginning of the movie, that was something else. That's something that I've never seen before. So that was really cool, very exciting. But I'll mention one last thing, and that is, don't you think John McClane is kind of invincible in this movie? I mean, he's really, really invincible. He goes through a lot, and he just walks away with a scratch. In the last 4 movies, I mean, he was in some really sticky situation, and you see some of his weaknesses. But in this one, he just walks away from situations like it's an everyday thing. And to top things off, this is the only Die Hard film where John McClane doesn't engage in any big hand-to-hand combat. That's something that's missing from this installment. Anyways, that's all I gotta say about this movie. While I did say quite a few bad things about this movie, I was still thoroughly entertained. Like I said before, the action is top-notch, but they really just get progressively bland. At the final battle, you see them all gearing up with all their vests and all the ammo and grenades and stuff, but they didn't really use a whole lot of it. So with all that being said, I'd give it a 6.25 out of 10. Watch it on a cheap movie night, or if you got afternoon matinee show times, then watch it then. And there you have it. As always, if you enjoyed this review, hit that like button, subscribe to my YouTube channel, like me on Facebook, The Ragin Nation, and also follow me on Twitter, @Ragin Nation. My name is Alex Yu, and thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace. Trust me on this. Look at his credits. 300, he knew exactly what it was doing, and Watchmen was a very ambitious film, but he pulled it off. In my opinion, I thought it was